Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final episode of our incredible 4th season of ResearchWorks, which also, coincidentally, happens to be our 200th episode. Dana, can you believe it?
Yay! No, I can't believe it, but also what a great celebration.
Oh.
Actually, when we first started, I had no real tangible thought about being here. At the end of, I just didn't see past and didn't see the 4th season, didn't see 200. It's actually really amazing. It's quite a milestone. Yeah.
It really is. And it's, I think, cause for celebration.
It does. I think we should get Ed to put in some celebration music there again. Cue now. 200 episodes.
So in keeping with tradition, we thought we would obviously do our end of season summary as we always do when we come to the end of a season. And it was a full season.
Full season.
Season 4. But also include a 200th episode celebration.
Yes.
And we couldn't do that without our trusty sidekick, our third host of the podcast, Marissa. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. You know, I really love this, so always happy to do it.
And we so appreciate you stepping in and hosting and picking up the load when, yes, I was otherwise engaged, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I love it. Anytime.
Yeah, it's so good. So good. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. So before we get our reflections of the 4 years now of the podcast and 200 episodes, obviously we have to do an icebreaker, as is tradition.
Yes.
I'm excited, braced, ready.
And I think it was after our 100th episode, at the start of our 100th episode, we did the Colbert questionnaire, which is the questions that Stephen Colbert, late night show host, asks all of his guests when they come on.
It's great.
We thought that would be quite revealing. But because there's 3 of us and we don't want to spend too much time on the getting to know you bit, I thought we would condense that down into 3 what I think are quite insightful questions.
Okay, I like it.
Let's do this.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but maybe.
Get to know even more about us. I feel like after 200 episodes, people probably know quite a lot about us, but we'll see what else we can add to the party bag.
Oh,
yeah. Let's start with a gentle one, okay?
Okay.
It's just a one-word answer. You can give some context if you like. What is your favourite word?
I think my favourite word is, I was going to say awesome, but I actually think it's cool.
Cool.
I would often say, that's cool. Cool. Yep, cool. As in that's great. That's okay. Cool.
Yeah. And if you're trying to brush it,
I don't know if I'm living in the 90s, but I definitely use cool.
That's mine.
Not as in the cold. Not as in the cold.
Mine. Yeah,
because we spend too much time together.
We do. I've reflected a lot lately, and I say cool a lot. And
I feel like it's very versatile.
It is very versatile. I think it came about because I wasn't allowed to use that word in the 90s because cool was a Bart Simpson thing.
Oh.
And back then, everyone was really worried that Bart Simpson was a bad influence. Little did they know how the world would evolve. Bart Simpson is tame, but it was like his cool terminology was really bad for us.
What was his No, I can't remember his catchphrase.
Cowabunga. No, not cowabunga. That's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm kid there. I can't remember it now.
No.
Doe? No, that was Homer.
That's
Wrong one. It's like, cool, man.
No.
Right over.
Something man? Cool, man? No.
I don't know. I can't. It's been a little while since I've seen it.
Kids of the 90s, and we're so old now that we can't even remember what they said in the 90s.
But now I feel like I do say it in a lot of context. And then I heard one of the team members here the other day said, you're old when you start using the word cool for everything. And then I was devastated. And then I realised how much I use the word cool because I use it all the time. It's like, oh, yeah, cool. Yep, cool. Yep. Or if I'm thinking about something, cool. And you think about, but then I'm excited. I'm like, that's cool. So it has different tones to it. And I don't care what they say. I'm going to stick with it. It's not an old person thing. It's just a modern day.
It's cool.
Non-offensive. It's cool.
Yeah. There are worse words you could use.
There are worse, most certainly so.
What's yours, Ash?
What's yours, yeah.
Oh, so mine's not that cool.
Hi-carumba. Hi-carumba. Is that Bart?
Yeah.
Hi-carumba.
She's got it. So we go.
Okay.
Well done, Dana.
Sorry, Ash.
It's okay because I'm nerding out on my word.
Okay, what's yours?
I have loved this word since I first learned it. I can't remember what year I learned it in school, but it's Such
Can't wait.
onomatopoeia.
I was not ready for that.
Yeah.
Is it because you can say it in that kind of way? Like,
Yes.
It's the pronunciation and you can really
You can
emphasize
say it really
it.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love what it means.
Onomatopoeia.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's cool. Cool.
Eat my shorts. That was what
We went from the Simpsons to that. We did, yep.
Yeah, that's why my mum didn't like Bart Simpson, because he said, eat my shorts.
Yeah, there's all these. Yeah, that's right.
Sorry,
Yeah,
we've
so
really
tame.
jumped around here on this.
have, that
Who
was
would have
great.
thought
That's
that
great.
question would, that was my ease into it question, the one word answer question. Okay, next question.
Okay.
What is your most annoying personality trait?
Dana.
Okay. So I'm a combination of a creative soul.
Mm-hmm.
I play a lot of music. I've got that creativity sort of bug in me, but I'm also very diligent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no offense to creative people out there, but you can be a little bit, flighty a little bit if you're too creative. But I also have this real
The type A.
yeah, so that I can get things done as well. And so what I think I'm really annoying for, but I think you can appreciate it, is I can come up with ideas and then I'll come running in and go, I've got a great idea, and then off I go on it. And so then off we go in another direction for something. It's usually related. Like there's a build up to it. But then I do think whilst I live in that space, I do think I might scare people around me every now and then, but I think people love it. I think it's great. I'll come up with an idea and be like, hey, let's do it. And then blah, 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 and I'll follow it through.
Yeah.
So
I don't think that's annoying.
I think it's a
that's
wonderful
annoying?
thing.
Really?
No.
I think you need to pick another one.
Yeah. I was about to say that's a wonderful thing. That's called being dynamic and not settling and
Look, I mean,
ambitious.
I do come, it's usually, there's certain places where I come up with ideas. Unfortunately, it's usually the shower or it's the toilet. And when I'm at work, I don't have a shower, but I do come running in from the bathroom with ideas.
Yeah.
So you always know these
Look,
ideas
as long as
come
you're
in
getting
those places.
ideas, it doesn't
We
matter.
don't mind
okay,
where they
yeah,
come
that's
from.
Okay,
No.
cool. That's cool.
Look, I think mine is saying sorry. Something I'm improving with, but definitely as a child, you know how people have fine jars for saying an offensive word? Mine was for saying sorry because I
Marissa.
apologise too much.
Tell everyone about the basketball court.
So I used to bump into people or they'd bump into me and I'd say sorry. And so I was known. I did improve, and I did improve in my, assertion and confidence to know not to say sorry.
Good.
So it has gotten better. But
Yes.
definitely a lot of people from high school that would remember me would say that saying sorry was definitely
Yeah.
for no
Yeah.
reason really. Yeah. Anyway, I blame it on having older brothers. Anyway, we'll see.
You can see if you can trigger it. Just bump into Marissa. It'd be your fault,
see if
but
you
she'll
get
probably
sorry.
say
I'm trying to
sorry.
be tougher.
All right.
Yeah.
Noted.
Yours, Ash?
I'm going to hip and shoulder you in the corridor, see what happens.
I might do it back. I can't have change. What's yours, Ash?
There are many to choose from. I think about what the people, I think about what my husband would say my most annoying trait would be, and it's probably that I can't make decisions.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Indecisive is the word?
I'm very indecisive.
In what areas?
All areas.
Oh.
All areas of life. What I want for dinner, what we might do on the weekend, what we should name our children. So I'll go through like this a prolonged period of indecision.
Yes.
And then I decide. And then that's it. My mind can't be changed.
Wow.
So
okay. So there's a process.
There's a process.
For you.
For me.
Yeah.
Internally, like I'm fine with it, but it's quite challenging for people around me. I just need time.
Okay.
I need time to mull things over, weigh up the pros and cons. It's not something that I'm very good at talking out. Like it goes around in my brain for a long time and then I have clarity on what it is. But until that point, I can't
push it.
I can't push it.
Okay.
And the more you push it, the longer it takes.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing for everyone to know about.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
See, I'm saying
But yeah,
so
it's not very relationship friendly.
I think, I'm looking at the positive in that you're really weighing up every decision and you're going to have a great,
once you made the
being
call,
wise.
you made the call.
Yeah.
It's great.
It normally works out okay.
Normally works out okay.
Except for dinner.
Yeah, there's only so long you can wait for that one. Yeah,
you can't prolong that.
No, that's true. That's true. That's a
All
good
right.
one. Okay.
Okay, and the last one. What is your idea of perfect happiness?
Back to you.
Marissa?
I was thinking about this and I thought it's just when you laugh like no tomorrow. You know, when you get those real laughs where you uncontrollably laugh and it happens with a few very dear friends or family and you just laugh or get the giggles and you have fun and be silly. To me, that is the times you forget about any worry you have and it is just genuine, pure joy.
Yeah.
I love that.
Take me there anytime.
That is great.
Yeah.
And often you can't always pick when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And normally it's not over things that necessarily warrant that amount of laughter.
No.
But
it's happened
always
before a podcast before. So
I'm sure that will come up in some reflections.
I was like, I know, me too. I didn't know whether to say it or not. You, Dana?
No, that's good. Look, I love a good dinner party. And I feel like the older I get, the busier everyone's lives get with kids. You don't tend to have them as much anymore. But I do love having a celebration where I was house sitting for a friend. Actually, she's been on the podcast before. She's got a lovely wood fire pizza oven outside by the pool. And I was cooking a lovely pork belly and it was perfect. And there was a bit of wing in it, but it was perfect. And we're all around there and we're bringing the food together and we're sitting there and we're just chatting for hours till, late night.
Yeah.
That to me is... That's just F words. Everything about the F words right there and then. But it's so, I guess, wholesome to use a word that everyone uses these days. But it really is. It just fills your cup. Yeah.
Love that.
So food, people, friends, laughter.
Yeah.
Take it all.
Love that.
Wonderful.
Yeah. What about you, Ash?
I agree with all of those things. My idea of perfect happiness would be as the sun sets down at the beach on a really, really hot day.
Yeah.
And the water's really still.
Yes.
And you've got some dinner and all the people that you love around you.
That is beautiful.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah. And in WA, we have the best beaches, that's for sure. Come visit.
Next week it's warm.
Yeah. Next weekend it's warm.
Yeah. That's right.
So if you're thinking of coming to visit.
That's right. Come on down now. All right.
Okay.
They were good questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You're
Ash.
welcome.
Should we get into it?
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into our reflection on the journey so far.
Okay. So Dana, I've got the first question, which we like to do on the podcast here. And I thought I would start off by asking about your original vision for this podcast, because it was an idea that, germinated, over 4 years ago now.
Yes.
Why did you want to do this podcast and what did you want people to get out of it?
I actually remember the moment very, very clearly. It was one of those, probably one of my annoying trait habits again, where it was like, oh my gosh, I've got an idea. And this one took probably about a week to really sort of formulate before I decided to tell people. It was about October 2020, I think. And I was sitting at my desk and I was just hear what people were saying about being evidence-based. And I remember being frustrated that people weren't able to keep up as well with the latest evidence. And I thought, actually, it's not their fault because they don't get access to all these research articles. I'm a research fellow, so I have access to the university databases, but that's job-based. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have access to it out in the community. And then that was the time as well, I was really noticing on social media, because people couldn't access things online from a clinician's perspective, they were looking to social media because that was when things were really proliferating. Remember around that COVID time, that became an information source. And we all looked to that for COVID. But then we started looking to that for therapy. And there were just all different things that were coming out. And yes, I'm going to name names, but the things that I saw a lot of was CME saying it was evidence-based. I'm like, hang on, I don't think it is. I remember looking it up going, no, there's like 2 case studies on it. And then I thought, how can anyone actually ever discern from one to the other? And the other thing is time. Who has time to read a research article and actually get into it? Because normally you've got to be around people to have that discussion, but we're all working in our silos sometimes. So how do you do it? So it was literally over the course of a week in October. And then at that point, I remember speaking to our producer Ed, and he's like, that's a good idea. We've got to find someone to do it with you. And I was like, Ash. And so then you got a call from me pretty soon after that. And I was like, do you want to host a podcast with me? And then it was just that. It just had started, and we reached out to the first 8 people that we'd interviewed, and they're all really well-known names in the area because we knew them well through our research connections.
Yeah.
And they all just said, yes, they want to be part of it, and they really helped us get it off the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the story of the start. And so that was October, and we started recording in January.
We did.
It was not long after. So another annoying trait I do have is I'm very impatient. It is very useful in circumstances like this, but it can be very bad in many other circumstances. But yes, I'm impatient, want to get it going, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember? Like how,
I do. I remember us meeting up for a coffee and talking about the podcast, and maybe it was sometime around October, because I remember we both had really bad hay fever, and I remember thinking, how could these two people who keep sneezing and coughing and have horrible raspy voices because of their hay fever ever host a podcast? Yeah. Luckily, we have producer Ed to sort all of that out.
We do.
And we're on our antihistamines now.
Yes. And here you are, episode 200.
And here we are, episode 200. Yeah. And I, feel very grateful that I got to be a part of this journey with you, Dana. It was just become so much more than I ever imagined it could be.
Yeah, it really has, isn't it? It's just taken us to different parts of the world, and we've met so many incredible people.
We have.
Yeah. For me, I think it's the fact that there's always it's the people you do it with. And so it's the same for me. Like, to be able to do this with you, Ash, and Marissa, for you to be able to come and join the team as well. It's been such a great ride. Like, it's 4 years, but it's gone by so quick because it's just in it with friends.
Yeah. And Marissa, your ability to jump in at the drop of a hat when required, but also, to come in and co-host alongside Dana. You've done an incredible job. So thanks,
you. Guys. Look, I love it. I love the way we can, these days with computers, talk to these experts on the other side of the world and find out information that we might never have been able to share with others, and just the impact on me as a clinician as well. And that all that information is so valuable. So well done.
Yeah, it's really cool. Oh my goodness, I'll say it so many times now. But I think it's also just the metrics. The way that metrics are often done for researchers is how many journal articles you can publish and citations. But I kind of go, well, again, let's get it out to the masses. So that's why this is available and freely available, because I think it's an important metric that we haven't caught onto it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've got the next question.
Okay.
This will be a fun one. So what will be your most memorable moment, or series of memorable moments that really stand out to you and still resonate with you today? I have a few that just pop into mind the minute I ask that. But yes, Ash?
It sounds really cliched, but the most memorable moment for me would be the few seconds before we started recording our first episode. And I can remember my heart I thought that for sure you would be able to hear it on the microphone. I was so nervous because I think our first episode, we didn't feel confident to bring in an external guest at that point. So we thought we'll just kind of interview each other and see how we go. And we talked about one of your papers, Dana.
Yes. Yep.
But yeah, I thought you've got to keep it together. Like, if you can't even get through one episode with Dana, how are you going to be able to host this podcast with guests, actual, external guests? And all that anticipation and anxiety, and I'm sure if you don't do it, but went back and listened to that episode, you'd be able to
still do
hear it. And I cringe at that. But, it shows growth and development. And, we should be proud of how far we've come. But, I won't ever forget that feeling, I don't think.
I remember that room really clearly, because we had to hire space back then, and everything was in a suitcase.
Yes.
And this space was beautiful. It looked beautiful, but it was like a soundproofing nightmare. There was basically no soundproofing.
Yeah. And I was really pregnant.
You
so
were
I was
so pregnant. Yeah.
really breathy and out of breath all the time, especially from walking up the stairs. And it was really hot in there. We couldn't turn the aircon on because it was super loud.
That is actually a proper memorable moment. Yeah. What about for you, Marissa?
Look, I was thinking, and even from whether it's from a research perspective of who we interviewed, and I was thinking, and I actually listened to it again this morning because it's one of my favourites. Yeah. And I was thinking about what's impacted me the most. So this is kind of still memorable, but in a different way. And it was Stacey Dusing's podcast, and it was the Think to Move and Move to Think.
Yes, I love that one.
And I feel like when I think about something, obviously there's been many amazing things that are very memorable, including when we laughed so much before a podcast started. That was a very memorable moment when Dana and I got the giggles and could not control the laughter.
Wait for the
Eddie.
music. Like, oh my gosh, hold it together.
we did pull it together. It was quite amazing. But
we actually had to look to the other side. We couldn't look at each other.
Yeah. So that is probably that's just a personal one.
Yeah.
But in terms of memorable moments from a just something that's really stuck with me, and I think about now when I do assessments and talk to families, and when we talk about programs and interventions, it's that idea of you move to think and you think to move, and scaffolding, ways for play and engagement. And I think it's something that impacts my world on a daily level, whether it's at home or even at work as well. And I think it's that active buy-in and that engagement. And I just love the way she talks about that. So that for me has been a real standout.
I'm pleased you said that, because I was thinking about, and we'll talk about a bit more about specific episodes and things down the track as well. But
sorry, did I jump the gun there?
No. I think it comes into all of the questions that we're going to talk about. But Stacey was someone who came into my head as well. I just, you leave some conversations buzzing, I think, from the conversation that you've had and the thoughts that you've taken away from it.
Yeah.
And there's a few of those that come to mind for me, but Stacey's was definitely one of them.
Yeah. She was a great speaker, and I think she has an ability to wrap things up really nicely. Yeah.
And it's so when someone's so passionate about what they're talking about and, believes in that and has the evidence to back that, it's a great combination.
I love that.
Dana, you?
Well, I think mine would be as a relatively young researcher. I know, and I'm 10 years post-research, PhD now, so maybe I'm not so young anymore. But, you have all these names of people that you've read and admired for so very long. And to be able to interview them, I would say my memorable moment was kind of like your first episode, is where you just go, oh my gosh, I just need to make sure I look smart. I ask good questions. Come on, keep it together.
I wonder if I can guess who it is.
Oh, you totally.
I've got it too. I think
because I think I felt the same.
Yeah. And I was just trying to hold it together, and you could probably hear in my voice I was in awe, and I was like, oh, you're just amazing. And yes, so Diane Damiano is one of my absolute favorites. Peter Rosenbaum, of course. Anna Novak, Ginny Palik. They're just big names you've always read about. I've never actually met before. Then you meet them online and you're like, oh, thanks for coming to our podcast. Thank you. Very memorable. Yeah. And their generosity, it has been, insane.
That's the thing, isn't it? Because it's, 200 episodes, almost 200 guests. We've had a few people back a few times, but, almost 200 people that have given their time to share their research with us. And it's, there's a lot of, we'll talk about that in a sec too, but there's a lot of work that goes into that at our end and at their end. So it's very, very generous. And we're very privileged.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Now, we're all about growth and learning. We've been reflecting, but the idea that we are always learning. So my question is, how do you feel you've grown as a host, both professionally and personally, since starting the podcast?
Okay.
You go.
Yes, I've been thinking about this one.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to reflect on things like that, because, we talk about how many episodes we've done and the people that we've spoken to, and it's not often that I sit and reflect on how I've changed over the journey.
Yeah.
And journey, there's that word, journey. I wonder how many times we'll say that. I think it's something that's changed in me personally that has probably reflected professionally, but I feel so much more confident in my ability to ask questions. And I know that it sounds really simple, and it sounds like, as a researcher, that's what you do. You ask questions, but I feel that I am able to kind of look at research and look at science now and distill it down really quickly into some key questions that I'm really interested in.
So good.
Yeah.
Such a valuable skill.
Yeah. And because we get to flex that muscle every week.
Yes.
It's probably for people who are on the ground doing research intensively all the time, that is a muscle that you can flex quite a lot. But as you progress in your research journey, often it's a really interesting evolution that happens in that the more time you spend in research, the further away you get from research in a way. Like you're not often on the ground doing it.
Yeah,
so
that's so true.
This has been such a great opportunity to go back to that and read papers and, try and critically appraise them and then distill that down into a question that is easily understood by the clinicians that are listening to us, because we're not talking to, we talk to some researchers, but we don't exclusively talk to researchers. So it's really important that we're not bringing the language of research to these conversations as best we can. So I think, being able to distill things down into a user-friendly message, I guess.
Yeah.
Is
and that's a skill.
What I feel more confident in doing
translation.
now.
Yeah. That's brilliant. That's a great reflection. And I mean, mine probably feels quite similar to that.
Yeah.
But I would say that I'm a person that likes to be able to ask a question after I've got lots of time to think about things.
Yeah.
And, I'm not the type to be, I'm not fast. I'm not very fast. If something's happening and I go, oh, these are great questions I can ask. I'm a typical George Costanza in Seinfeld where I want to come back to the conversation and go, hey, I have the perfect, comeback.
Yes.
But what this has done for me is I now can just critically ask questions quite quickly. And that has come probably from the conference series where there's just 20, 25 people to interview different topics, and you're in there and you've prepped, but then you've got to go, okay, you've got to be adaptable. And can I ask a question where I can get as much out of that person to be able to highlight their work in that way and still make it user-friendly.
Yes.
I think that has been really good for me. And for me professionally, I just love that my finger's on the pulse.
Yeah.
Where the current research is at. I don't feel like I can, nothing really surprises me at the moment because we're just reading everything that's currently being published, and it's a beautiful place to be.
It really is.
If you're listening to the podcast, you're at that place too.
Yeah.
So you can be really confident about that.
I love that.
Yeah.
What about you,
Awesome
Marissa?
answers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realise this was coming back my way. I was just asking it. I think it's confidence in the skills, I guess, you bring as a clinician as well, and that perspective. And I'm trying to think of a good answer now. I didn't, sorry guys, I was thinking more directed.
I've noticed that the change in you, like the first time that you sat in front of the microphone and how, forgive me, nervous
I had to
you
swallow
were.
a lot.
Yeah. And, you were quite visibly nervous to sit here now, and you look so at ease and confident in what you're doing and articulating your points. Like, I think, it's incredible.
Thanks, Ash. Thank you. I think that sums it up. I'm not, the nerves aren't here anymore to that level, and I actually can just enjoy it and appreciate it for how incredible an opportunity it is and so great to be a part of. So
it's good. It's good. Yeah.
So we alluded to this before. There's a lot of hard work that goes into any project, and I think it's important that we reflect on and celebrate that because, we love the podcast.
Yes.
The podcast is hard work, particularly, I think, for you, Dana, and producer Ed. So my question is, what has been the most challenging aspect of having a podcast?
Yeah, I think it is making sure you carve out that consistency. And that is so important for any podcast, is that we're always prepped. And I will say that's the hardest part, is prepping each episode. So, contacting the researcher, before even that, reading articles, looking at what's there, what have we covered, contacting the researcher, hoping they reply back. Some people I don't know, so it takes a little bit to kind of go, hey, this is what we do. And
navigating time zones.
Yeah, time zones is the other part of it too, and when we're going to talk to them and then lining it all up. But a lot of prep goes into it. I would say I would spend a good half a day to a day a week, in terms of hours-wise, dedicated to the podcast. And on the other end of it, the production of it, so producer Ed would be on the other side, and he would make sure that the sound quality is good so it's enjoyable to listen to, which is why we're so pedantic about making sure we've got good setups, because it's just pleasant then to listen to. Yeah. But that consistency and variety, I think, is always hard work but enjoyable because we know people love it. Yeah, I think that's probably the big part of it. I do think there's probably aspects for each of you about that question, though. Is there anything that you feel? Because I feel like preparation, yes, big time.
Yeah.
But,
I think, just finding, because we all do this in addition to all of the other
that's a good
parts of
point.
our lives. So it's, making, like you said, just carving out time to prepare and feel comfortable with the material for each episode. You know, you want that work to shine and you want to make sure that you've prepared so that the work has the opportunity to do that. So I think, part of that relates back to what I was saying before and feeling confident in asking questions. I feel like probably at the start of the podcast, we relied quite heavily on the run sheet and we leaned on that quite a bit, which is understandable, and we still do. But I feel like you and I both feel very comfortable now to take conversations where they need to go and where the flow takes us, rather than being quite strict and rigid in our format, which I think makes for better conversations about the work.
It's the conversation element that's the most fun. Yeah. Next question, Marissa.
Now we'll move on to a different section. Okay. Moving on to a bit more listener engagement and feedback.
Yeah.
Now, I know we spoke about conferences and you didn't allude to the challenge, but hats off to you also bringing all the equipment for conferences.
Oh my God.
Dana, that must also be a massive thing.
Yes. We can talk more about that in a bit.
Okay, yes.
I'm still sure.
Okay, I'm not bringing it anymore. I will go back to my question. So you've both been to conferences now and you've travelled to some new places, which is very unique given we sit in a studio and talk to people from around the world. So my question is, what are some of your most memorable interactions or feedback from listeners?
This is a lovely question.
That's a good one, isn't it? Do you want to go first? You have one? Yeah, you go.
Yeah, perhaps because there's a bit of recency bias in my answer, but we recently went to Cairns for the AusACPDM conference, and I was just blown away by how many people came up to us and said they were listeners and just all gave really positive, warm feedback about how much they got out of the podcast, how useful it's been for them, how they've been able to apply the knowledge that they're gaining from this podcast into practice. And I just, that's what we intended to do, what we set out to do with the podcast. And so you hope that that's what's happening. But to hear it from so many people in that space, in that period of time, it just, I just came away feeling so privileged and encouraged to keep going, because it's really of benefit to the listeners.
It's so
great.
True. Yeah. And mine would be very similar to that. I would say I've been to a few of the conferences now, and you meet people from all over the world and they just come up and say, people from I remember the lady from Russia, I remember from Turkey, from South America, and all different countries. They just come up and say, look, we listen, we enjoy listening to it. We don't get access to articles, but this is how I keep up. And that is just absolutely brilliant. I would say something that I find very memorable would be how popular Ed is. So much so that recently he's been wearing an orange shirt because he's Dutch. So he wears everything orange if he can. And it's got producer Ed in the back. And just the number of people that come up to him and they want to meet him, they hug him, they talk about how brilliant his voice is. It's like butter. They love it. And they take selfies with him. And he was just like, whoa, me? But he's such an integral part of the podcast. So I love how people have just appreciated that part of it. But just people just from all walks of life just enjoying listening to us chat about research. It's very niche. It's very, very niche.
It's great.
Yeah. But I would say one final thing about the conferences, the most memorable things is when our luggage shows up at each location, because that is probably something we stress about the most.
It's a fair call.
And it's touch wood.
Oh, yeah. We literally so far, yeah.
We won't say it out loud.
No, don't say it out loud. But we look. Sometimes I look out the window and go, "Oh, that's a suitcase. That's one. That's two." Be gentle. Be gentle. Yeah. So that's probably pretty stressful, and it's very memorable when it turns up. Yeah. It's a celebration.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I've got the next question.
Okay.
So can you, Marissa and Ash, share any fun or surprising behind-the-scenes moments that our listeners may not know about?
Marissa?
Well, I've already shared the giggling one when we just laughed so much before a podcast, but that was a personal one. it's connecting on the other side of the world. I remember Dana and I did one at night once.
Yes.
A few years ago. And I remember coming in at night driving, which is always a bizarre thing because, my work hours are daytime.
Yeah,
driving
episode
in.
26. Yes.
Yes, well done.
That one
And
well.
I remember driving in and thinking, isn't this amazing? Like, I'm going in to talk to someone on the other side of the world who's like, I'm about to go to bed after this, and they're, their daytime. And here we are talking about something that was actually just incredible.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to me, that was just pure fun and surprise. And like, when would I get out of my pajamas to go and do that at night? It was wonderful.
Agree. Except I didn't get out of my pajamas. I came with my Ugg boots on.
Oh, did you? That's right. That was another one that we came in here for, right? Yeah, Friday night. It was quite cold.
It was really cold.
Yeah,
it has
beanies.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
It didn't used to be filmed. Well, when I came in at night,
such was the privilege of that time that we could wear our Ugg boots and our pajamas. And
I remember that one.
Yeah. Producer Ed thought, no, I'm going to put a stop to this. Get the cameras out.
What about for you both? I'm intrigued to get your responses.
Okay, this is a very silly one, but quite consistent. Whenever we talk to someone online, we now have to say to them, when we say goodbye on the show, please don't hang up, because we always like to spend a little bit of time debriefing and saying a proper offline thank you to them. And the reason that we now preface our conversations with that is that we did one episode and we hadn't said any of that, and we said goodbye on the podcast and our guest hung up. And and we didn't get any time to say a proper thank you.
It was devastating.
And we were devastated because we thought, oh, they think that's the end of the interaction, It's just a record and done and off you go and we'll see you next time. And no, we like to take time to thank people properly, to debrief, to answer any questions that they have. And so, that always just sticks in my mind.
Such a good one. And that episode was with Diane Damiano and Ginny Palick. And, I was dying. I was like, no, Diane, Ginny, stay on. I'm so sorry. So after that, we usually say that in a panic. But sometimes behind the scenes when we're doing sound check, I would say we're often talking to them going, that cat that's meowing in the background, do we think we can move the cat? It's things like that where, it's like, trying to get the sound check right.
Yes.
And there'll be little things you're not aware of until you're about to record a podcast that, the chair you sit on squeaks every time or,
I'm very conscious of the clothes that I wear now and the material. I remember I came in before we were videoing and I had like a parachute top on, and producer Ed was like, Ash, it's got to go. It's got to go.
That's another Seinfeld reference. Oh my gosh, I'm a Seinfeld girl. Well, I've stopped wearing my watch because I keep clunking it on the table, so I don't do that anymore.
I'm being very weary today every time I move my
hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same.
So we've all learnt our lessons. Yeah.
All right, let's celebrate 200 episodes, shall we?
I love it.
200, I think, is a very fun number.
I think it is.
Yes.
It's written as CC in Roman numerals, a common email reference. Also a very delicious corn chip.
That's all that's in my head.
For those interested in cricket, which, we have some international listeners, so you might not all be, but in cricket, which is a favourite Australian sport, 200 runs in a match is a massive achievement. Not many people can say that they have scored 200 runs in cricket.
Yes.
So if we think about episodes as runs, 200 episodes is a massive achievement. What, Dana, does it mean to you personally and to the podcast as a whole, do you think?
Personally, I think this it's so incredible, really, because we are currently rated around between the top 10 and 15% of all podcasts around the world. And a lot of that, we've now broken all the records on, being able to look at the downloads in terms of how many episodes we've released. And that longevity is just speaks to, I just feel like it's the perseverance and hard work of everyone on this team. And I guess what I like to go back to, and not everyone knows this is completely an unsponsored podcast. So, if you listen to many podcasts, you'll hear lots of sponsored by, and we've always we've been offered plenty of money, but we've just never taken it because we always want it to be, we've never been paid by anyone to do a recording or anything like that. So we know it's unbiased. And I feel like 200 just shows the investment and commitment. And that is pretty incredible, to get to that number, because most podcasts don't get to that. They get to 20, 30, 40, and they sort of drop off.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, perseverance. That's what that speaks to me. That's great. I love it. Yeah.
It's amazing. It is amazing. 200 podcasts. To think of where you were back in early 2021.
Yeah. That many people listen. Over 300,000 downloads.
It's incredible.
For this area.
Yeah, it is. Because like you say,
niche.
it's very niche.
Yeah.
And even, research is niche. But then when we talk about child health research, talking about an even more niche area within an already niche area.
Yes.
So to have, 300,000 downloads across 200 episodes is, I just feel really proud.
Yeah.
I feel really proud of, the team and all of the incredible hard work that goes into getting one episode out, let alone 200.
Yeah.
When you consider the fact that those episodes have been recorded all over the world now, not just listened to across the world, but have actually been recorded all over the globe.
Yeah.
It's, I just feel really proud.
Yeah.
You both should. Now I'm going to keep moving through. I know there's a lot to talk to, but I don't want to take away from that either because 200 is truly incredible. Incredible. So to both of you, but also to producer Ed.
Yes.
Well, none of it would happen without producer Ed.
That's what I know. He won't want me acknowledging him. I can't see him right now. So I know obviously we've covered a lot and a big range of topics you've covered in those 200 episodes. But has there been a topic or theme or guest that's really stood out to you? And I know we've had a lot of very memorable
Absolutely.
guests.
So many, yeah.
And from that, has there been any collaborations that have, come from that?
Good question. There's definitely topics that stand out to me. And we spoke about it before. You come away from some conversations buzzing about, filled with inspiration and energy for what you've just talked about and what you want to do as a result of that. And then there's some conversations you feel that way, but in a way where your brain has kind of been stretched and you need time to really think deeply about what you've
Daniel
talked.
Navon.
Yes, that's what I was just about to say. So the one that really stretched my brain and made me just think really deeply before, during, and after we recorded that episode was definitely Daniel Navon and talking about, the ethics around genetic testing and how we navigate that space as, a relatively, I suppose, in the scheme of research and the time it takes to get work out there, a relatively new area to consider for researchers, but also for families who are navigating a diagnostic journey. And that one really sticks with me as a very powerful episode.
Yep. So impactful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you hear parents talk about this all the time with genetic testing. You go, oh, wow, this is it.
Yeah.
This is the ethics. What do you do?
Yeah.
So many more questions. Look, I would say that. I love that you thought that as well. Because I remember my brain I could not stop thinking about it. But this sounds so simple. And I'm glad in a way it's so simple, is that our brains, it was like confirmation that our brains, in terms of how we learn, is the same. There's nothing particularly magical or different about a child's brain, a child that's got a neurodisability, because we've got to think about the fact that this is how we learn. This is how our bodies learn. And that repetition, all those elements and principles of neuroplasticity are universal. And I love that there's so much evidence now about all of that. And so you can bring those principles in about, self-initiated. It sounds so simple, child-initiated, but it's so critical. So you can't pick and choose out of those main 10 principles that was published, 2009 now? You can't pick and choose them and go, I will do that one and that one and that one. No. They're all important for learning new skills. And so if you're evaluating an intervention, instead of being worried about the name of the intervention, look to see how it aligns. And if it aligns with it completely, not that you're kind of steering what you do to fit that word in, if it aligns with it completely, then you're on it. You're in space. It's as simple as that, because that's how our brains work. And I feel like every time we talk to people about it, it's the same thing. And I think you say it all the time. Like when I'm talking to people about it, I feel like I'm buzzing. And I'm like, this is so good.
Yes. All the cells in your body are just vibrating. There's just energy.
I do love looking over at you when you do the podcast.
Yeah. And I don't know if, lots of clinicians listening will probably think, oh, of course. But for me, this is a conversation that has come up more recently in the podcast, and so therefore it's something that I'm reflecting on more and more, particularly I think in this fourth season that we've had of the podcast, and that is the principle of mobility as a human right. And it's something that
was a great episode.
That episode was, a vibrational one. But I think the follow on from that, it's come up in a lot of conversations and episodes that we have since recorded. And it's, it's something that I feel is really something that you probably work on intuitively as a clinician, but actually talking about it and putting the conversation out there and having everyone on the same page as that being, consistently something that needs to be prioritized and provided to children as an opportunity to be mobile. I think that's incredibly important.
That framing, wasn't it? The human rights framing.
Yes.
Beyond just the ICF, and Bernard Dan talks about that a fair bit.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah, really beautiful.
Yeah.
And I love that it comes up in more and more domains now, like you said, whether it's from the F words or Stacey Dusing and, the importance of movement and being upright, and that it is right. And I think, through the podcast and through other avenues as well, it's something that is hopefully happening more and more.
Yeah, and it's definitely opened up heaps more collaborations. My research network is so much richer, and we've got new projects now with a lot of the people I've spoken with. So that's really exciting.
It is.
Yeah, and it really does mean that so many of us are aligning and moving in that direction. So hopefully we'll have new interventions and new knowledge. Yeah.
And it puts us in a really unique position where we do get to have these conversations with people every week. And so that's really a fantastic instigator for more detailed conversations about, where priorities align and where questions align, the opportunity to work more with those people. I think it's, so fantastic.
Great. It's so good. Yeah.
I loved Carol Schrader's podcast, and that's still one that resonates with me because it brings together a lot of things from other podcasts in terms of, active engagement, motivation, but to have that consumer and that parent perspective, to go through what it was like now that her kids are older, in an adult, she could reflect, and she was really open and with her reflections in terms of, them going to therapy and balancing that. But what really stood out to me was how she had twins and they both love such different things, and that she had to completely change her expectations on what she was going to do with them and in what way because they had different, motivations and things that excited them. And she as a mum really went with that and just helped them blossom in those areas, even though, they had very different interests. And I think that's one of
our way, she said.
It was so good, which is really makes us, I know we always try and step back and we always want it to be, the parent's perspective, but we really need to go back and not look at every child as the same with the same motivations. Everyone is uniquely different in what might motivate them and excite them, and we have to kind of buy in, really look for that to get the most out of them.
Yeah. And as we've said, quite a few times now, just taking the time to do that, building the relationships with families and the children and really getting to know them.
Yeah. It's wonderful. Okay, so now that we've talked about, future, where do you see yourself and the podcast going in the next 100 episodes? So when you chat for your 300th?
It's kind of, that's a perfect question. That's how we normally finish our episodes. It's like, where to next for next 100?
The thing I love about research is that you never really, I suppose, fully answer a question. You in research, you end up in asking and answering a question, I think you end up with more questions, which means that there's always going to be more people to speak to and more work to discuss and share with our listeners. And so I'm really excited that the next 100 episodes brings an opportunity to continue to be at the forefront of research in child health and be able to share that in relatively real time with our listeners, because, we talk in knowledge translation about the gap between work being published and then being implemented into practice, and it's a long time. I think the most recent evidence on that is, I think it was around 17 years. 17 years. 17 years. That's scary. So, we've been going at this for 4 years now, and I feel like that's kind of expedited that process a lot. So I'm, very encouraged that we have the opportunity to continue to do that. Yeah. And I'd like to be able to do that for another 100 episodes.
I love that. Look, I want to push the boundaries on it. And one of the things that we have really thought long and hard about doing is coupling the ResearchWorks podcast with a credentialing program. So you've got, this is the research, and now you want the practical skills of how to implement what we're talking about into your practice and get a credential, like, have that marked as your PD. And that's something that has come up time and time again from a lot of people, like, I've heard it, and how do I do it, and how can I get in with all of that? So I really want to see the next 100 episodes really right alongside that kind of program. So, stay tuned. That's a bit of a hint to stay tuned because we're really excited about it.
Yeah.
And it's we're calling it, should I say the name? Well, it's called Pediatric Pathways, and it's just all about learning practical skills that we sort of do along with the podcast. And from that point, I just really want to go for it. I just want to really push the boundaries now. Like, talk about controversial topics and not be too scared of them, because I think if they're controversial, it means people are talking about it. So let's get onto it. Let's talk about those things and then as an industry move forward. So I'm excited for the next 100. We've laid down the foundations now. Let's go.
Springboard.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Hold on to your hats.
Well, before we run out of time, because I do think we could chat for a very long time, we thought it'd be really good to go to Ed. And he's put on the music.
There he is.
Hi, Ed. As you all know, is our producer. We keep saying he doesn't have a background in child health, but I'm beginning to think that he does. He has done an incredible job listening to all of these things. And look, we're not going to do a 60-second pitch to you, because I think if you're listening to it, I don't know if I could do a 60-second pitch to you at this point. But Ed, we thought we'd ask you a question because, you've often had the job where you're suddenly sprung into a topic. We never actually tell you.
No, we don't. Poor Ed.
We do forget. We're like, oh, Ed, we're talking about this today. We're talking to this person. He's like, okay.
He's got no prep.
We
talk about how important it is for us to be organised and prepped, and poor Ed gets none of that.
But it's become the fun of it in a way, because his job is to listen to the episode and kind of go, all right, what questions haven't we asked and what's really practical? Yeah. So, Ed, without any of that background, I'd love to hear your reflections of how you go with all of that and asking a question. Do you sweat it? Do you feel like it's easier these days? What's the deal?
Really shot yourself in the foot there.
Yeah. Whoopsies.
You do a little crash course.
You're very quiet.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah. All the secrets. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Well, I'm grateful that you're here.
Yes, I think your perspective is such an important one, because, you know, we talk about being able to break research down into a way that is more palatable
That's right.
for people. You know, hopefully for clinicians to be able to take it and implement it into practice. But I think the Tell It to Ed segment is such an important part of that to really help researchers explain those key concepts in a way. Yeah. And that's it. We're just the entree. But your questions are really insightful, Ed, and I think it really, it certainly adds value to what
it does. And we never know where it's coming from.
No.
We sit here and go, I wonder where he's going to go with it. But that's really genuine and it's real. And
you've got a great strike rate with our guests saying, what a great question.
I know. That's right.
No pressure. Oh, okay. It's very clever.
Well, I hope that summary of, 4 seasons, 200 episodes was one that gave you some insight into some background and what's happened. And we're so excited for more. We have also just created another podcast that's very aimed at families because obviously this is very research and clinician driven. We will get a lot of families going, it's good, but I really need something a bit more tailored for us. And so Therabytes is the one that spun out of this. Forgot to mention that before. And a lot of parents are listening to that too. So I think, we'll see where it goes. We'll see where we can head and what information we can share.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Stay tuned, yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
We'll wait for next season. So stay tuned for season 5. It's going to come at you in the new year. And we really have quite a great plan for you too.
Yes.
So, yes, enjoy Christmas holidays, New Year, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and thank you for listening.
Yeah.
This podcast wouldn't be what it is without all of our amazing listeners as well as our guests. So thank you for supporting us.
Yes.
And, please, if you've got people on your wish list that you would like us to speak to next season, let us know and we can do our best to get them on.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Well, for now, take care of yourselves. Have a great holiday season. We'll talk to you all next season.
Yay!
Bye.
Bye.